what do you call a softball-sized sphere of plutonium that has a personal vendetta against physicists. Well, the scientists at Los Alamos eventually called it the Demon Core. But before it earned its sinister nickname, it was just another component for a weapon of unimaginable power, waiting for a target that would never come. Welcome, brave souls, to Are You Afraid of the Door? Today, we're talking about a piece of metal so spicy, it killed 2 people just by existing in the same room. Before we get going, I want to make sure that everyone is clear on one thing. The people involved with these experiments were highly educated. These weren't history or psyche majors at your local community colleges. These were physicists and well respected in their field, which makes this story even more tragic. Enough premise. Let's get to it. This is the story of the Demon Core. Picture it. It's 1945. World War II is raging, and the Manhattan Project is in full swing, cooking up the world's first atomic bombs. They've built a couple, used them, and now they've got a third one, HOTTOGO. This core was hot to go. It was a 14-pound ball of plutonium gallium alloy. Was all set for a one-way trip to Japan. No return to sender. It was scheduled to be ready by August 19th. But then, on August 15th, Japan surrendered. Suddenly, this state-of-the-art apocalypse ball was unemployed. So, it stayed behind at the Los Alamos Laboratory in New Mexico, where the scientists, a group of people who are generally not known for leaving well enough alone, decided to use it for a few experiments. They took it so seriously that they called the core Rufus, and the experiments were designed to see just how close it was to going critical. You see, a nuclear core like this is subcritical, meaning it's pretty stable on its own. But surround it with materials that reflect neutrons back into it, and you start waking the beast. The whole point was to get it just on the edge of a self-sustaining nuclear reaction without, actually starting one. This delicate dance was nicknamed tickling the dragon's tail. And as you might guess from the name, sometimes the dragon bites back. Especially if you are cavalier enough to F around and find out. Enter Harry Daghlian, a 24-year-old physicist. On August 21st, 1945, just 6 days after the war ended, Daghlian was working late, alone, except for a security guard sitting a few feet away. He was building a wall of tungsten carbide bricks around the plutonium sphere. Each brick he added pushed the core closer to criticality. He was monitoring the neutron counters, stacking them one by one. And then he dropped one. It fell directly onto the core. For a split second, the assembly went supercritical. A flash of blue light filled the room as a wave of intense radiation burst from the core. Daghlian, realizing his catastrophic mistake, instinctively knocked the brick away, but it was too late. He had received a fatal dose of radiation. He died 25 days later from acute radiation poisoning. The security guard, Robert Hemley, received a smaller but still significant dose. He survived for 33 more years, eventually dying of leukemia, likely linked to the accident. The dragon had claimed its first victim. After the first incident, you'd think they'd increase safety protocols, right? Maybe add some robot arms, a lead-lined bunker, or at the very least, a do not drop bricks on the angry atom ball sign. Hell, we have one of them right next to the like button. And they did. They made some new rules. But rules are only as good as the people who follow them, and these scientists thought they were immortal. This brings us to our second protagonist, Louis Slotin. Slotin was a Canadian physicist, a bit of a cowboy, known for performing these dangerous experiments in blue jeans and boots. He was the local expert on tickling the dragon, but his method was even more hands-on than Daghlian. He would take 2 half-spheres of beryllium, a neutron reflector, and bring them together around the core. The standard, approved procedure involved using shims to ensure the 2 halves could never fully close. Slotin thought shims were for amateurs. His technique: he would hold the top beryllium hemisphere with one hand through a thumb hole and use his other hand to keep the 2 halves separated with nothing but the blade of a flathead screwdriver. Yes, a screwdriver. Pure genius. He controlled the gap, and thus the entire reaction, by twisting the screwdriver. The physicist Enrico Fermi, a man who knew a thing or two about nuclear reactions, purportedly told Slotin he'd be dead within a year if he kept this up. Fermi, unfortunately, was not wrong. On May 21st, 1946, Slotin was demonstrating his signature technique one last time before leaving Los Alamos. He was training his replacement, Alvin Graves, with 7 other people watching in the room. As he was carefully lowering the top hemisphere, his screwdriver slipped. The beryllium halves slammed shut. Instantly, another brilliant blue flash and a wave of heat. The room was filled with the metallic taste of ionized air. The core had gone supercritical again. Slotin, with incredible reflexes, flipped the top hemisphere off the core and onto the floor, stopping the reaction in less than a second. He had saved everyone else in the room from a lethal dose by absorbing the brunt of the radiation himself. He turned to the others and calmly said, "Well, that does it." He knew he had hit that big subscribe button in the sky. He then had everyone mark their positions on a blackboard so doctors could calculate their radiation exposure. Louis Slotin received a massive dose, over 5 times the lethal amount. He suffered a horrific and rapid decline from acute radiation syndrome, dying just 9 days later. Alvin Graves, who was standing right behind him, received a high but non-lethal dose thanks to Slotin's body shielding him. He survived for another 19 years before dying of a heart attack, possibly related to the radiation damage. The other 6 people in the room received lower doses, but lived with the long-term health consequences for the rest of their lives. A security guard, Patrick Cleary, survived the demon core, only to be killed in action 4 years later in the Korean War. After this second fatal incident, Rufus was officially and forever known as the Demon Core. So, what happened to this cursed sphere of plutonium? The hands-on criticality experiments were stopped for good. One of the survivors, Raymond Schreiber, designed remote control machines and camera systems to perform the tests from a quarter-mile away, which seems like a much better idea. The core itself was too radioactive from the accidents to be used in the upcoming Operation Crossroads nuclear tests, as planned. It was allowed to cool down, and then, in the summer of 1946, it was melted down. The material was recycled, its demonic atoms scattered and repurposed into new, presumably less homicidal, nuclear material. The demon core was no more, but its legacy serves as a dark reminder of the horrific power lurking within the atom, and the incredibly thin line between scientific breakthrough and absolute catastrophe. It highlights the immense bravery and perhaps the hubris of the early atomic pioneers who tickled the dragon's tail, sometimes paying the ultimate price for their curiosity. So that's all we have for today. Would you have been so reckless with a radioactive core? Let me know in the comments if you would have been willing to work on a nuclear core. Until next time, stay curious.